Hey Lennies, welcome back to our channel. Happy New Year to you all. I'm so excited to bring this video to you. It's been highly requested for like the beginning of time, basically, since we started this channel, on how to keep your house clean and organized with rabbits, especially after our apartment tour video where a lot of you guys were asking how I keep my place so clean with Lennon around. And the truth is, it is possible. You do have to make the extra effort, but if you want to learn how, I'm gonna show you exactly what I do in this video, so keep watching. All right, before we get started, I do have to let you guys know I am dealing with some bronchitis, so sorry if I sound a little hoarse, but I want to show you guys something really cool. Check out our merch. It says I'm a Lenny. Isn't that adorable? It's all linked below. We've got some really cool things. But anyway, let's delve straight into this video. Now, when I asked you guys what your main concerns were when it comes to staying clean and organized, these 4 topics kind of kept popping up. And those were hay, non-potty trained bunnies, storage, and odor. Those are all a little vague and they kind of all relate with one another as well. So I'm just gonna kind of break each one of those down and talk about different solutions for those topics. So let's start off with the hay factor because that's like everyone's biggest concern and also just like the messiest substance to deal with. It's so annoying, it just gets everywhere. So one thing I really recommend is getting a high-sided litter box or a covered litter box, and that's basically a litter box with a lid. And the nice thing about having a high-sided litter box is that if you do have a digger or a kicker, then the hay is less likely to spill over the edges. Now with the covered litter box, you really don't get any spillage at all except through the entryway. And I don't know about you guys, but Lennon has this habit of like stuffing her mouth with a bunch of hay and then running across the floor with it and kind of like tracking hay all across the room, which is super annoying, but also really funny. And so there are some inherent rabbit behaviors that you can't really change, that you just have to live with. So when I do notice hay being tracked all along the floor, that's when I grab my broom and I just try to sweep it up right away, because the longer you let it sit there, the more it's going to accumulate. The other thing to take into consideration is the quality of the hay that you're getting. So usually good quality hay is gonna be nice and thick and long strands. They're not gonna be as choppy or as dusty. Now we order our hay from Small Pet Select. It's really good quality. It gets delivered to us like every 6 to 7 weeks. And it comes in a huge cardboard box. And so what I do is, instead of transferring the hay to a different container, which I used to do, I just cut like a little flap in the cardboard box. And so then I can just stick my hand in, shake off the excess, that way there's not a lot of fallout, and then pull out the hay that I need. But if you do feel like you have to transfer the hay to a separate container, because let's say you get your hay in a big bag and that bag can get really messy, it's also an eyesore, then by all means, transfer that hay to a nice big container. The other thing I would recommend is there are some litter boxes with hay feeders built in them, specifically made for rabbits. And you can find a lot of those on different Etsy shops, local rabbit organizations. I know Small Pet Select also makes a mess-free hay feeder. So you can always work with one of those mechanisms to reduce the hay from getting everywhere. Me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of hay feeders, especially like the little plastic ones from the store. Those are the ones you don't want to buy. But if you are gonna get a hay feeder, make sure it's big, it can hold a lot of hay in it, and has really spacious openings for the hay to poke out. And then another hack that I've seen a lot of people do on the internet is buying like a chest or a cabinet or a trunk and then cutting a hole in it and making that like your rabbit's little potty space. You can like put their litter box in there and their hay in there, and they can make a huge mess in there, but it's not really gonna trail out. You know, hay is 80% of a rabbit's diet, so unfortunately it's not something that you can avoid. When you get a rabbit, you become married to the hay.
I now pronounce you devil and devilish.
Okay, for the tools that I use, so I do have 2 vacuums, a broom, and a Swiffer. I don't expect you guys to own all of those, but that's just what I have. And my one vacuum is a stick cordless vacuum. It's really lightweight and really convenient when I just need to whip it out for a quick run through. And then I've got my more powerful Miele vacuum that I'll use mostly for hay and for a deep cleaning. The Miele vacuum was really expensive, but it was a gift. So again, I don't expect you all to go out and buy that vacuum, but I really recommend at least saving up to get a good quality vacuum because you're gonna need one when you have a rabbit in your household. And the nice thing about this vacuum is it's so powerful. I mean, it's one of those vacuums where it'll like suck up your curtains if you go near your curtains, and that's definitely happened to me.
Hey, it's not so...
I literally brought down like the whole curtain rod. It was a scene. It was a scene. But with this vacuum, I really don't have to worry about it getting clogged up with hay or anything like that. It comes with like several different little mouthpieces, but I just like to take off the mouthpiece when I'm dealing with hay, and I can just really get into every nook and cranny with it. Now with the broom, having a broom is really essential when you are dealing with hay or, any little poop pellets everywhere. So what I like to do is I'll sweep up any huge chunks of hay first, and then I'll go over everything with the vacuum. And I'll sweep maybe about once a day and then vacuum maybe about every 3 to 5 days. And then my Swiffer is one of my favorite tools as well that I'll use mostly during molting season. I barely use a Swiffer, but when I do, it's for that purpose. And it just works so well with picking up like fur balls and dust, which I'm highly allergic to. The nice thing about the Swiffer is you can just kind of glide it across the floors. You can get under the couch, under the bed, kind of hard to reach places, and the fur will just stick to it like a magnet. All right, on to odor. A lot of you guys have complained about an odor problem. So I have to stress and reiterate that rabbits do not inherently have a bad odor. Actually, if you pick up your rabbit right now and sniff them, they really shouldn't smell like anything. The only reason why a rabbit would smell bad is if A, they're dealing with some kind of maybe dental issues and they have an infection somewhere, or maybe they're a special needs rabbit and they're not defecating properly. Rabbits living in cages, because an odor will develop if they are living in a small concentrated space, especially a small cage with like a roof over it where there's not a lot of ventilation. So they're spending a lot of time in or next to their litter box. They don't have anywhere else to go. In turn, they are then absorbing any odors from that litter box. And if those cages are not getting cleaned out very often, or the litter boxes aren't getting cleaned out, the food and water bowls aren't getting cleaned out, bacteria starts to build up and old veggies can start to smell. So of course there's going to be an odor. This is not because the rabbit itself smells, which is why, aside from ethical reasons and physical and mental health for the rabbit, I really don't recommend a cage, because those things can really start to stink. And then more often than not, the bunnies living in these small cages are not potty trained, and so they are pooping and peeing everywhere. You really should be cleaning out the litter box frequently. We do so about once every other day, but that's gonna depend on how many bunnies you have or how big or small your rabbit is. So I will link our video on how to clean out a rabbit litter box, as well as our video on how you can learn to free roam your bunnies. I really recommend watching it if you're interested in transitioning. At the very least, your bunny should be living in a large exercise pen. And I can tell you right now, if you transition from a cage to an exercise pen, you're gonna notice a huge difference right away in any odors. Okay, moving on to bunny safe cleaning substances. I really love this odor and spot remover by Abby and Sullivan. It's in the lemon verbena scent, and it's non-toxic, biodegradable, bleach-free, non-corrosive, and cruelty-free. And you can spray this up in the air, on furniture, wherever your bunny has had an accident. This is especially useful if your bunny tends to pee or poop like in the same spot always, and you're trying to get them away from that spot. You also can't go wrong with just some good old vinegar. This is apple cider vinegar, but you can also use white vinegar. You can spray this all over your floors to mop your floors instead of using something toxic like Pine Sol. You can also use vinegar to clean out your litter boxes. I like to throw in a little baking soda if I'm trying to remove any residue in the litter box. Dish soap is also a bunny safe cleaning substance. You can use that to clean out any bowls or dishes. You can use that to clean out the litter box. Okay, moving along to storage. A lot of you guys saw in our apartment tour how I store a lot of Lennon's things in my utility closet. And so you know that I really love these storage cubes. You can get these on Amazon, Target. I'll link these specific ones below. And so it's really easy to just throw, you know, different little costumes, hats, flower crowns, harnesses, etc. in here. And then I love labeling everything. It just makes things so much easier in terms of identification and knowing what I'm pulling out. And it just makes you look like a neat freak even when you're not a neat freak. She's got her first aid kit, and then her grooming tools have their own shelf, and then fleece blankets are all folded up really nicely. And it just makes such a difference when you have everything separated into sections like that. All of you guys also know that we have our famous little toy basket that I keep in front of the fireplace. And this comes in handy so much because all of her toys are in here. It's just the easiest place to keep them in. And then like if I'm about to have company over and I just need to hide everything really quickly, I can just throw everything in the basket and make it look like a rabbit doesn't even live here. So I really recommend getting a toy basket or a toy bin or a toy box. Now in terms of cord and cable organization, I swear by this stuff. This is called split loom tubing. You can find this at any hardware store, Home Depot, Amazon, even IKEA sells them. And it's basically like a really thick plastic tube with a slit down the middle, and you can just slip the cord right in there. And ever since I started using that stuff, I haven't had to worry a single moment about Lennon chewing any of my cords. Now, every rabbit is different, so I do recommend observing your rabbit first and seeing, you know, how they do around them. Now, if you have any bundles of cords that need to be kept together, like for internet or cable per se, you can easily put those in a basket, a bin, or a bucket. Carve a little hole on the other end so you can plug them in. Or you can use the storage bins that I showed you. But cords and cables are really important to protect and organize because bunnies really like to chew those things, and that can be life-threatening because they can get, you know, electrocuted or burn their mouths. Furthermore, you'll also lose probably an expensive cable like a charger that you might need. It's just best to avoid all of that. The other complaint that a lot of you had was having to constantly pick up after your bunnies who are not potty trained. In other words, they're pooping and peeing everywhere, and that's become a big nuisance for you. So really that boils down to litter training your rabbit, but then the root of that problem is going to come down to whether that rabbit is spayed or neutered. Aside from health reasons and like elongating their life and preventing different cancers, spaying and neutering is really going to be beneficial in improving your rabbit's litter box habits. Rabbits are inherently very territorial animals, and so they want to mark their territory constantly. Spaying and neutering is going to reduce that behavior. But I'm going to link in the iCards our video on how to litter train your rabbits. It is really important to deodorize the area as soon as they have an accident. Make sure you're picking up the poop pellets, putting them in the litter box, and just kind of showing them the way, showing them where they need to go. All right, next we have the fur problem, and that can be almost just as bad as hay during the molting seasons. Rabbits shed a lot. They shed about 3 times a year, really heavy molts, and then they'll have kind of small molts in between. But when Lennon is shedding, I get like the worst allergies because I'm super allergic to hay and fur and dust. And so it's really important that I keep all these things controlled. But the root of that problem is really gonna boil down to making sure the bunny's getting brushed regularly and brushing them properly. So I'm gonna link in the iCards above our video on how to brush a bunny. This is also just important generally for their health because they ingest a lot of fur. So if your bunny ever goes into stasis, you wanna make sure that there aren't gonna be any blockages. But lint rollers work really well. The Swiffer works really well. I also find it very useful to declutter every few months. And this is something I do with Lennon is I'll go through toys that she's not interested in, products that didn't work out for us, blankets, etc., and donate them to local rabbit rescues or animal shelters in need. So ultimately, it is possible to live in a clean and organized space with your bunnies. Remember that rabbits are not really messy animals. They're very clean. They're not like dogs. I find dogs to be a lot messier than rabbits will ever be. You know, dogs track in mud and dirt, they slobber. So I think it's really cool having a rabbit once you get into the swing of things and you have a routine and you're reminding yourself to pick this up or sweep that up. I promise you won't have any issues and you'll be living in a spotless home. If you try any of the tips in this video, I'd love to hear about it. Send us some photos. And if you have any ideas of your own, I'd love to hear about them. Don't forget to check out our merch, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and all that jazz. And we'll see you all soon. Bye.